You can experiment with your investments. Choose the stocks you like one by one, or select Sector Spider ETFs and add the diversification of an entire sector of the S&P 500, like healthcare. With liquidity, all-day tradability, and transparency. Ready to add diversification to your equity investments? Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Go to sectorspiders.com for prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully. Visit us at sectorspiders.com.
I'm DeLegge with ETFGuide. Welcome to another episode of Marketplace Minute. Before you can get your money right, you must first get your mind right. Cognitive biases often get investors in trouble. We're going to talk about a couple of them, and one of the things here is to avoid making investment decisions that we later regret. So the first one is the bandwagon effect. This refers to what's commonly known as groupthink or herd thinking. In other words, people have the tendency to do what others are doing, buying the same stocks, buying the same ETFs, buying the same funds, often making the same mistakes as the crowd. So bandwagon effect or herd thinking, definitely something you as an individual investor want to avoid. Next up is something called the Ostrich Effect. And this refers to the common but false legend that ostriches bury their heads in the sand to avoid danger. Well, not entirely true. They do bury their heads in the sand, but it's really basically to ignore certain realistic things that are happening in the world. But the main thing here to understand is that one study, in terms of how this relates to you and me as the individual investor, one study in Scandinavia found that during bad markets, when stocks are falling or crumbling, people looked up the value of their investments 50 to 80% less often. What is this? The ostrich effect. They don't want to know the reality of the situation. They don't want to hear the bad news. So we have to, as investors, face reality and be realistic about our investment goals and what's actually going on with our investments. Finally, one last cognitive bias that gets investors in trouble is something called normalcy bias. The refusal to plan for or to react to a disaster which has never happened before. Normalcy bias, what it does is it causes people to drastically underestimate the effects of a disaster, in this case, maybe a stock market crash on their investment portfolio, something that they don't really want to think about, plan for, something maybe they've never even experienced before. So what people tend to do is they interpret the warnings through the most optimistic lens as possible and actually drastically underestimate the significance of it. So these are some cognitive biases that are common that get individual investors in trouble. I'm DeLegge. Thanks for watching another episode of Marketplace Minute.